Welcome to the Hoof and Fang podcast. I'm Kirt Graves.
And I'm Maz Maddox.
Hey, dude.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good. It's been a long week already.
I know. And it's, well, for us, it's Tuesday.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're not far into the week.
No. For all the listeners who are listening on Friday, just know we might not have made it.
Yeah. We might be ghosts because it's already been a long week and it's been 2 days in.
This might be the 9th and last episode of the Hoof and Fang podcast. So what's new with you?
Nothing. I mean, same stuff, just day job being stupid. We're ramping into Black Friday and I don't know if I've ever given like super details, but I work on the retail side of business, but like on the corporate side. Mm-hmm. So we're ramping up into the craziness of Black Friday. And so my job is to plan a bunch of stuff and it's just a fight, like constantly fighting every day.
Right.
So I deal with that. But then when I get home, I get to unwind and do fun stuff. So I'm still working on Wild Contracts, finished the dinosaur short. I'm working on some fun little short stories because we're like ramping up on Patreon. So now I'm in the like, oh shit mode. Mm-hmm. So I'm like trying to get all that stuff done. And I'm proofing the very fantastic audiobook that you're recording right now. So it's
happening.
Yeah. So this is like, I get to go home and like work on all the fun stuff I really like. But like during the day up until us recording the podcast, it is just like a constant grind of bullshit. So I'm tired.
Right. I think you've just described most jobs.
Yeah.
Just a constant grind of bullshit.
Yeah.
In fact, if you don't have that kind of job, congratulations to you.
Yeah, you win.
Right. I mean, I win.
Yeah.
Technically.
You do.
I do.
You're one of those people.
I do not deal with a constant grind of bullshit. Just like a trickle every now and again.
Yeah. I mean, with anything, I think that you're a part of that you have to do to make money. There's always going to be something in there that sucks. But
any job that includes working with some other human being will have some degree of bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's just what's going to happen.
Right, exactly.
What about you? How's your week going so far?
Good, except I'm not feeling great today. As you know, I got my flu shot yesterday. Yeah. Strongly encourage everybody to go get their flu shots. But I'm feeling it today. So I've just kind of felt off and weird all day, but as I said earlier, it's nice knowing what's causing that and not having also the panic of like, oh no, am I sick?
Yeah.
To go along with these very, very mild symptoms. But I'm a boy, so, I can't handle not feeling well.
I was going to say something, but I didn't want to be like that asshole. But
No. We are notoriously wimps when it comes to being even mildly uncomfortable inside our own bodies.
Yeah.
We don't have to go through what you go through, and we're not conditioned for it.
That's fair.
So,
yeah.
So, that was, but otherwise I'm still working on the audiobook, which will be coming out next week, Friday.
Yep.
So, recording files, sending them over to get proofed. Things are happening.
Yeah.
And, a little bit later, we'll be talking to the author.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited. I kind of want to harass her about things because I'm already like, I'm not we're trucking along, but I think I'm only at like chapter like 10 or something. So like I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it now.
In the thick of it.
Yeah. So I'm like, I have questions. I need to demand things. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to her.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where we're at by the time we interview her.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully I could maybe, I don't know. I might try to speed read and just finish it, but we'll see what happens.
Sure.
Either way, it's been super fun so far.
Yeah. So I was thinking lately about pop music, which is not something I usually think about.
Do you listen to a lot of pop music?
I don't listen to a lot of music, period.
Oh, yeah?
For most of my adult life, I have been a NPR audiobook podcast person. Most of my listening habits were created in the car.
Okay.
So commuting, or I was a traveling salesperson for a few years, really long drives, 16 hours sometimes just to get where I was going. And then
that's rough.
Slowly work my way back doing appointments all the way. So that's when I really got into like audiobooks, and I knew every NPR station between here and Mobile, Alabama, so I could find my talk radio when I needed it.
That's awesome.
And I just find that like that sort of content engages my brain in a way that music doesn't.
That's fair.
Music is almost automatically soothing to me.
Okay.
So, and that's not good if you're doing a 16-hour car ride.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you don't sing in the car or anything like that? It's not your jam?
I sometimes, but again, I can do it for a little while, and then like I just start to get lulled into the cadence and the beat, and like it just starts to calm me, and that's not, again, that's just not what I want. No. If I'm driving a really long time. I mean, I am a musical theater guy, so I've listened to soundtracks growing up, and I still will do that from time to time. I like songs that are sort of telling stories. That's always been my MO.
Yeah. Okay.
But of late, there's an artist who has captured my attention in a way that most don't. It is the Australian pop singer Troye Sivan.
I don't know that person.
Okay, well, you're going to go look up his music videos after this, and you're going to feel scandalized.
Okay, great.
But also impressed. But it just got me thinking about how important representation in media is, and like how your attitudes towards something can change if you can see yourself in it.
Yeah.
Which is something we sort of touch on and talk about a lot in our work, and representation in casting when it comes to audiobooks. Like I have that conversation all the time.
Right.
But yeah, Troye has really got me thinking about some things. First of all, I'm not usually a twink guy.
Yeah, not your thing.
I'm happy they exist, and I'm good at playing them in a book, but they're not usually for me.
Fair.
He's got me. You're going to watch these videos, and you're going to be rethinking your stance on twinks.
I'm fine with twinks.
Oh, okay. Well,
I like all types of boys.
Maybe it will just enhance your thinking about twinks.
There you go. It'll reconfirm things I already know.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, of the listening jury, if you have not seen these music videos, go look them up. He's done 3 now in the last few weeks, and 2 of them are very, very sexy.
Nice.
And the third one is sexy, but in a very different way.
Okay.
But with this, and obviously he's very gay. He's queer. He's openly queer. He like
picked up on the context.
Yes, this is the context. But it's just interesting to me that because he's telling a story that I can relate to, because the pronouns are right, as simple as that is, like he's a guy singing about guys, I'm like, oh, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm into it. And it has me wondering, like, oh, is that why some people like pop music? Like, is that why straight people like pop music?
Yeah.
Or why many gay men really like female pop singers? Because they can put themselves in the female shoes, and at least then they're hearing about love, falling in love with men.
Right.
You know?
Makes sense.
And a similar thing happened when Lil Nas X's album came out. Like, I'm not a pop music person. I'm not a hip hop or R&B person. I just don't listen to much music.
Yeah.
But when that album came out, I was really into it.
Yeah.
Because it was like, oh, here's somebody in a genre, a style of music that I don't normally listen to, but he's telling a story I can relate to.
Right.
And I'm suddenly into it.
Yeah.
And so it just has me thinking about, like, how much of yourself do you see in the media that you consume?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's gotten better recently for like most queer people, but me as a cis woman, I didn't relate to a lot of media growing up. I didn't really like girly things, especially like in the early 2000s. To me, it felt like a lot of the female characters were dumb, vapid, weak. They were always the damsel in distress. I mean, you can trace it back to all the way to like Super Mario. Mario was a hero. Peach was the one that was stuck in the castle who couldn't take care of herself. So like that was reinforced in media for like video games and comic books and cartoons, all the stuff that I really, really like and still do. I'm just this huge nerd. All that stuff was just, all the women sucked. And like the Ninja Turtles, they shoehorned a female one in later, but she sucked and they dropped her. You know what I mean? But
a female Ninja Turtle?
Yeah.
It wasn't just April?
No, it wasn't. And April was there, but she wasn't cool. She was like the reporter that
she had a pretty cool jumpsuit.
Yeah, the jumpsuit was
we love
fantastic.
The yellow jumpsuit.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like iconic as hell. But like she didn't do anything other than like hang out and get kidnapped.
Right.
Like she didn't know martial arts. She couldn't do anything cool. So growing up, I was, I think it messed with my gender identity for a long time, and had like non-binary been around as like a lexicon, like in the lexicon, like it is now, I probably would have leaned that way as a younger person. But now, like, we're seeing this cool renaissance of like these really cool, complicated, strong female characters that are becoming more, accepted and are in these like movies and video games, especially. You've seen a huge renaissance. Like, since I'm a video game person, I'm
hopefully more than accepted, but like put to the forefront, celebrated, made
100%. Like I think the first major one was Lara Croft, and even that one was like she was still like half her ass was hanging out. Right. You know what I mean? Like
that was definitely still media made by men for men.
Exactly. But like you're starting to see more of these cool, complicated female characters. Like I mentioned Baldur's Gate 1,000 times, but there's this one character.
Oh, what is it? I don't think I remember it.
In case we need a recap, it's a fantastic fantasy RPG that I've been sinking all of my time into. But like the female characters in that, amazing. Like they're not these helpless weakling kind of things. There's this one lady who has her heart is made of metal, and it's like a working engine, so she's on fire constantly. And she's like this big puppy dog, badass barbarian tiefling with horns and stuff. And she's like the coolest character. And of course, everyone in that universe is pansexual. Like they fuck everything. So she's like this, in my mind, super queer butch lesbian on fire chick. And I'm like, that's me. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I finally see myself
that's
in
me.
media.
Exactly. I've always wanted to be a huge devil lady who can wield swords and have her choice of partners, you know? So I think being able to see that now in something that I love as much as video games is paramount. It's so important. And I didn't realize that lack of seeing myself until I finally did, I guess. I could see it and be like, oh,
I relate to that.
Yeah. You're like, this has been missing from my life for 37 years, you know? So yeah, I think it's hugely important.
Right.
And we're coming into an era now where creatives are starting to experiment more and put themselves into it, or just not do the same normal straight stuff all the time, which is fine.
And
but
it's, to a degree, it's commercially viable now.
Right.
You know, like if Lil Nas X and Troye Sivan and movies like Red, White, and Royal Blue can do well enough to bring in an audience and prove that they can make money.
Yeah.
You know, one of the biggest songs of last year, I will not remember the name of it because, again, I'm not a huge pop fan, but I do know it was like Sam Smith, a queer non-binary person, and Kim Petras, a trans raptress.
Raptress?
I don't know.
If that's not a word, we should make it one. I love that.
Again, if you didn't believe me when I said I'm not really into pop music or hip hop, you believe me now because I didn't know the right word. And did you see me panic when I was like, oh no.
Is that right? I don't know.
What if female rappers have a different name and I don't know it?
That's great.
And like they had one of the biggest songs of the year. And it's just like, oh, look, queer people can make things that everybody likes.
Yeah.
And God forbid, they might have a little bit of an experience of being like, oh, I can't actually relate to that. That's not my story, but I still dig it.
Yeah. Well, and I think people can relate to things even if it doesn't speak directly to them. I mean, we've been consuming straight media forever and we're still like, oh, this is great, even though it's not my story.
Right. So, although now I question more and more as I see the media that does represent me and I'm like, oh, I really like this. Was I just conditioned to like the things that I don't
it was available.
Relate to at all? Yeah. It's just what it was. It's what we grew up with. It's what was in front of us. And most of it, you know, of a high quality and but yeah, it wasn't, and it's still not terribly diverse in like the rooms where people make decisions about media.
Yeah.
So like there's still an overwhelming whiteness, an overwhelming straightness, an overwhelming cisness to everything that's put out. So to a degree, like it's still happening, but these little moments of like hearing up, like, again, just a pop song or a rap song that I wouldn't normally seek out, but it's like, oh, it's about a dude falling in love with a dude.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fun.
Right.
Like, this is a fun song about something that like, I know this experience. Like I know this feeling. It's just nice.
Yeah, it is. I think, I don't know. I think a lot of straight people take that for granted that their stuff has always been represented. Because it's everywhere. I mean, that's what it's been for 99% of the time. So being able to see something that is as like we're deeply passionate about just readily available now, and like you turn on the radio and you can hear something that you can relate to is powerful. It's insane.
Right.
So
I agree. When we're done with this, I'm gonna make you watch one of the videos.
Okay.
And I'm gonna watch you watch the video. We can't film it and put it on the internet because
we'll get demonetized or taken down or whatever. So
we're super monetized on YouTube. But yeah, copyright infringement and whatnot.
Yeah, I think that's what I meant more than that.
Yeah, we just don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
So yeah,
it'll probably me just with being like grinning and going like the whole time. It's pretty.
So this week, we had the opportunity to talk with author Gigi DeGraham, who is the author of Prisoner Steel Pack Book 1, which is the audiobook that we are releasing in October as part of Hoof and Fang Audio. Gigi DeGraham currently lives, plays, and learns in New Orleans. She's a proud Southerner and enjoys fixing up old houses and writing. I can't wait to talk to her about old houses. Most of her story and character ideas develop while sanding and painting. Can relate. Love the thoughts that come to you while you're doing something with your hands. She is a huge hockey fan. Cannot relate. A die-hard Minnesota Wild fan. Also cannot relate, but I know it's a hockey team, and I know what the logo looks like because of my husband. You'll always find her with an audiobook in her ear and listening to everything narrated by Kirt Maz.
She's got great taste.
I mean, she's a smart lady to put that in her bio.
Yeah,
know?
She worked the audience.
She knew what she was doing. Yeah. So this is our conversation with Gigi DeGraham. Hi, Gigi. How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
So I would like to start just learning a little bit more about you and your background and how you got into writing.
It's kind of a wild story.
We love wild stories.
So when I was little, we used to go camping a lot, and my mom would be over in a hammock reading a novel. Typically, it was like Danielle Steele. Okay. And so my grandmother, she was kind of a tough lady, and she would always say, oh, she's over there reading another trashy novel. And so here I am, a little kid, roasting marshmallows and, looking at my mom defying my grandmother. And I don't know, I just kind of thought, my mom is really a badass, Yeah. And so that kind of stuck with me. And so I took some classes in high school and then college, and I was really interested in it. But then when you start thinking about how am I going to pay to live,
writing doesn't rise to the top of that.
It didn't look promising. So I got recruited in college by the police department from the town I lived in. And so I was a police officer for several years, and then ended up later on in my career, got injured in the line of duty, had to disability retire, and I was just bored. And so I decided to go back and finish my degree. And so I ended up finishing up my criminal justice degree that I had left to go be a police officer. And while I was at it, I decided, well, let's just go see about that English degree I always dreamed of getting. And so I started taking classes, and hey, let's try the author thing as kind of a second career. So here I am. Yeah. Never imagined that, it would be anything more than a hobby, and I got lucky. So.
Wow.
Yeah, that took a turn. I wasn't expecting police officer to come out of that story. That's amazing.
I know. And I heard on one of y'all's previous podcasts that you used to be a dispatcher.
Yeah.
Right? And when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, she'll totally get what I'm saying when, when we're talking about this stuff. So That's really cool.
It makes sense because like I'm in the middle of proofing Prisoner right now for Kirt, and like I'm, the main character. It starts off with him in prison, so I was like, wow, this is pretty good. This person, about the prison,
not good.
Well, no,
accurate.
Let me walk that back. I don't mean. You know what I mean?
You know what's great? Our prison system.
I will take good.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like it was accurate, I guess I should say. But that makes sense.
Well written.
Yes, well
thought out.
Exactly.
No, I'll take good. I'm totally fine with good.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a good transition into Prisoner, which, as Marky has said, is good.
It is.
But it is also, it deals with some rough topics. We'll get there. But yeah, knowing that background now makes so much sense as to how you were able to bring that to life in a way that doesn't feel like it feels in the movies. Like it feels icky in a lot of ways,
right?
Which is, I'm assuming, more accurate.
I think so. I mean, I tried really hard, and then I also took a corrections class and did a lot of research. Even with fiction, if you're not doing research, you're not doing your work justice in my mind. So I really tried to get it as accurate as possible. I've never been in prison, so it's not based on, personal experience. It is research, imagination, and I've certainly been in jail a lot.
Sure, yes.
Just not in that capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and please don't hate me because I used to be a police officer.
I worked with cops for like 3 years, so you're no problems there for me.
I promise I was a nice one.
Right. I was going to say, in the same way that I don't believe every cop is virtuous, I also don't believe that every cop is awful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, especially when it comes to the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No hate coming from us.
Nope.
Thanks.
I am curious. So then, in the path of watching your mom read trashy novels to the genre you decided to write in, where did the inspiration come from? Did you go through any other things? Have you written other things and found that they weren't for you?
I've got a couple of, I have a book out. So I also grew up on a farm, and not far from the farm I grew up on, and I'm originally from Arkansas, so country, and you can probably tell by the way I talk. And I went to a rural high school, and a bunch of kids that I went to school with lived in a trailer park nearby. So I did write. I'm so fascinated with trailer parks. I just think they're a very interesting world. And so I did write another book that is The World is a Trailer Park. So, and that one is Lucky, and that's been out for a little while. So that was my very first book. Duet.
That was the first one you wrote?
Yes. Prisoner actually started as a short story in a fiction class on unlikable characters. And I'm kind of one of those people, like if you tell me I can't do something, then I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to try to do it anyway. So
I didn't take it as a challenge, not a rule.
Right. So I wasn't satisfied with just writing an unlikable character. I wanted to write a likable, unlikable character. And so Prisoner was my attempt at doing that. And so now I love my professor. Let me just say that. But he was kind of like a highbrow dude, very literary. And so I was like, I want to write genre fiction. And he was like, well, you're taking literary classes, and those two shall never meet. And so I was like, why not? So we had a little bet, and I said, I'm going to try to write a novel that's got literary elements and genre. So that's where Prisoner came from.
I love that. So as a non-writer, can you talk more about what that means to include literary elements in genre fiction? How you approached it?
Okay, so it's a kind of, I guess it's a potty mouth word. I don't know, but purple prose is typically what editors like to call it. But, just those moments where you dip into, I guess, the more poetic language. I like lyrical language quite a bit, and I'm really fascinated with words. So I try to use a lot of unique words in my writing, and I really think about each sentence and the placement of words, the order of words, the sound. I don't know. I write a lot by sound. So any opportunity I get for using lyrical language is a big deal. Metaphor, simile. There's a lot of metaphor in my stuff, and so I just wanted to combine that. And plus, I love dirty romance novels too. So I wanted to throw that in there. Prisoner's not that
very tame by my standards.
Yes, but when we get to book 2, things heat up. So
okay, good.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, right. I was about to say.
Yeah.
You also, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the book for our listeners who will, many of them, be getting it the same day a week after this episode comes out?
Okay, so it's another crazy story. So I took an intense
crazy stories.
I know, right? So I took this intense literature class, and we had to read William Faulkner's Absalom. And everybody typically thinks that's a Civil War novel. It's about racism. It's about, life in the South. But it's also a queer novel. And the 2 characters in that book, Henry and Bond, they do not get a happy ending. And I was so angry at that book. I mean, just troubled by it. So I think I'm always just trying to give Henry and Bond that happy ending that Faulkner denied them. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So
you're not the first person we've heard that from.
Yeah.
I forget who we were talking to. Was it Tavia who read a Mercedes Lackey book, but the little queer boy, the sad queer boy didn't get their happy ending.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'm going to take this in another direction.
I know. I was just like, oh my gosh. So, so Prisoner kind of was also influenced by that motivation that I wanted to give, the Henry and Bond in my head, the happy ending they deserved. And then also I had read a book, and I was a little upset with it. But this was when I was kind of, before I had learned as much, I guess, now as I know about the book world. I was very naive. I want to write books. I want to be famous, whatever.
Right. Yes. Those famous authors.
Okay, so
all 4 of them.
Move past all that. And so I did not know at the time that there was such a thing as like a template novel where you basically meet the requirements of a publisher and they tell you what to write. Like you have to have these characters. They have to do I don't know if there's another term for that. And I didn't know that was a thing. And so I was so and I was like, I think I could maybe do at least as good, if not better, than this. And that was also a motivator, and I wanted to write something different because a lot of the romance books, unfortunately, they kind of feel the same. And so, shout out to Maz because different.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been enjoying Prisoner because it doesn't feel like a romance novel right away, which is interesting because I read so much of the genre. And of course I love the genre. It's like my passion, but every once in a while you get one of those books that is just, it feels different. It doesn't behave the same way. It doesn't follow the same rules. And it either is one of those really not my bag, or I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm having that this is awesome with Prisoner, because I'm like, this is like, I know it's a romance and like it's sprinkled in there, and I have a very like, I haven't hit the end yet, and I refuse to read the synopsis of book 2 because
she has no idea.
I'm like,
no idea.
I can't spoil the surprise, but I like have tingly hopes of like what the ending is going to be like, and I haven't had that in a while. I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Damn it. Well, or yay.
I'll be very surprised if you're like, oh yeah, exactly what I thought happened was going to happen happened. I'd be very surprised.
Okay. Well,
part of the fun of this is that it is so different, and it's not. And I think what you were talking about was different, even than just saying like there are tropes and there are beats that a lot of books hit. Like publishers will actually say like, this is the novel we want, and like audition authors to go write this book.
Right.
The template that they put out. So it's more even than just like following a beat chart or something like that. But that being said, like, it doesn't feel like you followed a roadmap that I am familiar with. But at the same time, I feel that there's a direction.
Yeah. It doesn't feel chaotic. It just doesn't follow the normal romance roadmap, like you said. Like it really is like it veered off and is running kind of parallel to it. So it's still going the right direction, but it's not like, oh, okay, here's the meet cute, here's this. Like it doesn't do it in that kind of way. So it kind of keeps me like, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's very mysterious and fun.
Yeah.
And like you're playing with that and it's interesting.
It's not the road I'm used to, but it doesn't feel directionless.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody's driving. Yeah. And you have faith in that driver. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
That makes me feel good, because I was worried about that, because I don't know if my brain is like everyone else's, but I don't really think in a linear way. I definitely think in a non-linear way. And so that comes across in the book, like how I think is how I write. And now, then you go back in, and sometimes it's like putting a puzzle together and you realize, oh, I can't do this because then this doesn't work out and I have a big plot hole and I've got to go fix that. So there is a little bit of, what is that look?
Sorry, the podcast listeners can't see that I just gave a meaningful look to Maz.
I don't know what you're talking about. Slander.
I saw it. So, like, you guys know what I'm talking about when there's the big plot hole and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to fix this, But then, I don't know, something happened. You know how the characters, like, speak to you in your head and they say, no, I don't want that. I want Thomas, or, whatever. And so you end up going in these different directions. But I wrote myself in a corner and I called my professor, the guy I just love to death, but he's stuffy. And he was like, well, you either have to delete all that or, let this character progress or come up with something new. And the come up with something new was the option I went with, and wolves. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But it resulted from a mistake and a learning process. So, yeah.
That's
very
awesome.
Interesting.
That gives me hope, because I'm facing a very similar thing in what I'm working on right now. I had a very clear direction on what I wanted to happen for the love story. And it's not going that direction because it just refuses to connect. And now I'm like trying to figure out how I'm going to fix it. So maybe I'll just throw in some wolves. Like maybe there you go. Like suddenly shapeshifters, I fixed
Okay, I don't know that the lesson to be learned there was the answer is always wolves.
That's what I got from it.
Sorry, but I also do love wolves and wolf stories. So, that wasn't that wasn't a difficult end to reach or a solution to my problem. It wasn't what my professor suggested. So it was all me. But no, I had a lot of fun writing it. It was very challenging. Yeah.
Well, and let's talk a little bit more about the book specifically, without giving too much away. And it is hard to describe the book without giving too much away, but I think it's fair to say that, we are following our main character. As you said, they start out in prison. I think it's okay to say that part of the plot, it happens very early, is the prison break. So the prisoner of the title is the main character, and the life they attempt to lead once they break out of prison. But structurally, you did something interesting, which is that a lot of the story is told in flashbacks. So we're getting the main character's history through his memories, but they're not like structured as flashbacks. Was that a choice you made intentionally?
No, because I didn't really know anything about flashbacks at that point. You know
what I mean? Like how sometimes, like the book will, like there'll be the page break, and then you'll be in the flashback, and then there'll be a page break, and you'll be back in real time. Like you don't treat them that way. They're like they bubble up as memories, and then all of a sudden we're back there, and that's what we're living through and talking about.
Yeah, I mean they are flashbacks, but not accurate ones, I guess you could say, or by the definition. Now that I've had a craft class, I'm seeing all these things I didn't quite get right, but I don't care. I did them my own way. But, I really struggled with how do you write running? Like, that's going to get boring. I mean, this guy's running for like 6 days. You can't just, and he ran. So I had to find a way to fill that space of distance, time, and this kind of like fast-paced tension of, am I going to get caught? And so I wanted to be able to kind of go in his head with his past and give the readers, what's going on in his life, some characterization about him. And then, so that's kind of where I went with it, because like, how do you write running? So that was my solution.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful solution too. And it feels natural.
Yeah, I was going to say it feels organic, and I think that's why I liked it so much, because like I like the clear flashbacks. They can be done well. I've seen it, but the way that you have the flashbacks kind of just folded into what was happening, it feels kind of like when you get lost in your own thoughts. Like it just feels like you're giving a lot of exposition without just dumping it all on one page. Like it's just floating up as he's remembering things, as he's like, is running for his life for 6 days. So yeah, the way you crafted it was well done. I really liked it.
Thank you.
Speaking of structure, would it be fair to say that Prisoner is not only book 1 of the Steel Pack, but maybe even just part 1?
Oh boy. Okay, so remember, naive, don't know the rules of the book world girl, and still that girl, still very much that girl.
I mean, aren't we all learning
rules as I go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I originally was like, shoot big. So I was gonna write the epic. So I originally wrote it as an epic. Then, when I'm all happy and satisfied and let's send this to somebody and see if they'll accept it, you go to, submit your book, and then you see the word count limit and you're like, wait, what? And so I was like, okay, I cannot
all those
submit.
pages cost money and publishers are cheap.
Right. Yeah. I cannot submit this monster. I have got to break it down. So I ended up with 3 out of the epic, and this is 1. And so, yeah, it is a part 1 of the broken down epic, but it is also, I really wanted to start out with the human before they ever get to the paranormal world, and really know that character, and then follow that journey into the paranormal world. So that's why we spend so much time with our main character.
And I think it's highly effective. The only reason I bring it up now is that I know that there are people who struggle with not having a resolution at the end of a book. That's expected.
Right. Especially in romance.
Right. But if they can go into it knowing, don't expect it doesn't all wrap up. We interviewed Nicole Knight. I did her series. Everything does not wrap up after book 1. It takes 6 books to tell that whole story. people loved it. But I think part of the reason they did is she was very upfront with the fact that like, this is not going to, I think she used the word slow burn and a lot of other descriptors just to say like, the full story will reveal itself, but you have to trust me and you have to stick with it. And it is going to be a longer road than just one book. Mm-hmm. So, it makes a lot of sense learning that it is part of the epic, and we're just getting the first taste. Mm-hmm. And you know, that formula certainly worked well for TJ Klune with Wolf Song.
Right.
Like he spends a lot of that book with Ox being none the wiser of what's going on around him. So, right. It can work. It has.
Let's hope.
You know?
Let's hope.
Yeah. The other thing I think it's good just to chat about a little bit so that people are prepared is there are some darker themes in the book. Can you talk a little bit more about like what part of the process I get? Like, I don't want to say why is it important to you to have that in there, because my guess is the answer is because that's the story. And I know that authors don't always have control over their own stories. That's just the story they have to tell. So I don't want you to justify why it's there. I just want you to talk about how you worked through it.
Well, I like darker stuff. So that appeals to me, and I enjoy writing that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with my experiences as a police officer. Unfortunately, the world can be a very dark and scary place, and I have seen all of it, the worst of it. And to say that doesn't affect me as a person, and I don't carry those memories with me and think about certain horrible things all the time. I mean, that stuff's on my mind, and kind of like that book I was telling you about that, you know, I felt it was unresolved. In police work, a lot of times you go to a call, you deal with the situation, but you never know the rest of the story, like Paul Harvey used to say, and it bothers you, and you wonder about it, even years later, like what happened to that kid, or what happened to that guy, you know, or was she okay in the end? And it just, I don't know, I kind of almost feel like this need to fictionalize and finish the stories for my own sanity. But yeah, that's kind of where it comes from. I wouldn't say everything I write is dark. My first book isn't too dark.
I wouldn't even say everything in this novel is dark, but I mean,
it's heavy. Like there's heavy themes, but it's not like dark per se, but it's definitely some real life just shit that happens.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't turn its back on the real world, and I mean, the awful things that can happen in prison, the awful things that can happen to get somebody into prison, the justifications for things like violence and assault, and it's not clean, and it's not simple. It's messy, just like real life. I would like to say for the record, I don't think you dwell in that stuff, but they're there. You know, those elements are there. They feel justified to me. They feel like they're a part of the story.
Agreed.
But for anybody who really wants to avoid really heavy topics, we will include some trigger warnings, some content warnings, and then you decide for yourself if it's right for you to continue.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, that was kind of a hard thing too, because then I had to stop and realize, you know, this book is not for everyone. I know that. There are some people who will not want to read this book, but I'm a pretty straight shooter, you know. I kind of wrote reality in a fictional world, so I think there will be some readers who will enjoy it and understand it and not, you know, be bothered. But there are quite a few trigger.
Right.
There's quite a few trigger warnings. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's for the person who's looking for just a light and happy Halloween story. This is not that.
Yeah.
It's not an Olsen twins movie for crying out loud.
No.
But again, we wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think that the quality of the storytelling was there and that you earned those moments. And I think that's all we can ever ask from authors who are writing stories that include elements that might be upsetting for some people. But you can't avoid them altogether. We have a mutual friend now who, when I met her, asked me openly if she could listen to Under the Whispering Door because she has, suicide is a really tough trigger for her. And I said, no.
Yeah.
Don't read that book then. I'm not mad that the book got written, but it talks about that. It deals with that.
Yeah.
If that's a line you don't cross, then this book is not for you. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Still glad TJ wrote it. Still glad I got to narrate it.
Yeah.
And I could say that of many other books that I've read.
Right. Not every book can be for everyone. That's just how it is. Mm-hmm. So.
But I do think people would be surprised if they give things a chance.
Yes. Agreed.
No, I mean, I understand that but I personally, if I want to read something, I kind of seek out the darker, I don't know, more brutal.
Well, and with your experience too, it's what could be in a book that's worse than what I've lived through?
Right.
And
nothing's going to faze you.
There are plenty of people who have that same or similar life experience as well, who are in a book, please let me tell you stories from my past.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I am excited for people to have read it, to have listened to it. We have already warned people earlier in this episode that they're going to want book 2 ready to go if they're going to listen to book 1 because they're going to want to know what happens next. What's next for Gigi DeGraham?
So book 2, Fugitive, that comes out early release on Non-Star Press on their website. You can get that tomorrow.
So today, when this interview comes out.
Yes.
The 20th. Then the actual release is the 24th. And then what I've got down is that the Prisoner audiobook will be out on the 27th. So this is going to be a great week for me. Just bam, bam, bam. So, yes, lots of celebrating.
Yeah, you're going to have a lot going on.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. I am. And so I'm also really excited about Fugitive because, okay, I got to be careful not to give anything away. We go into the paranormal world. Mm-hmm. It's from a different perspective. New characters are introduced. And there's a lot of
even I'm don't say too much. I
know. I'm trying to be so careful. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can, yes, but I'm still here. Oh no.
Okay.
Just as a reader, I'm no, say less.
Okay.
Because I'm going to read it.
But I'm really excited about Fugitive. So.
Me too.
Yeah.
It was wild writing it, and so I had a lot of fun. And then I'm already starting on book 3. I'm going to finish that this summer. It's roughly written. I've got a character problem that I'm trying to sort out. And so...
those characters.
Right? I just have this one character. Oh, he drives me crazy. I just can't figure out his path. So, yes, I see y'all smiling. Y'all know this
I know
problem.
This
God. Yeah. I dream about it, these different ways that this character's life can go. So who knows what's going to happen, but we'll get there. I also have a sports romance that Non-Star picked up and got to edit that, and then that'll be coming out. So I'm super excited about that one. That'll be my first sports romance. So, yeah.
What's the sport?
Well, it's football, but it's got a little hockey in there because I'm a huge hockey fan.
Nice.
So. Those are the 2 sports that Maz knows about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I
watched the quiz, and that was fun to watch you rattle through. Wait, are there any other
to run out of sports after 2.
Yeah, I laughed. It was great.
Suit, man.
And then, rugby. Yeah. And it was tennis. So it was really great. I had a great laugh over that. Sorry. I was laughing with you.
Thanks.
You were laughing with me at her. I think it's more right. Oh, well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited for people to get to listen to Prisoner next week. And I'm excited to see what's next for you. And do keep in touch, and hopefully we can chat again in the future.
Yes, and thank you so much because, I'm a fan, both of you guys, and also thank you for narrating the book, because that was a pipe dream that I never imagined would come true. And if it weren't for this podcast idea and the opportunity, wow. So your dreams really can come true. So here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So super excited. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure. Thanks again to Gigi for coming on the podcast to discuss her work. The second book in the Steel Pack series, Fugitive, comes out next week on October 24th.
Ooh,
just a few days before the first book in that series, our October audiobook pick, Prisoner, comes out on Friday.
Double hitter, man.
Right. And we did not plan that. This is just how it happened. But I think anyone who finishes the audiobook of Prisoner is going to want to have Fugitive
ready to go
in their library, ready to go.
That's fair.
So look out for that on October 24th. And then if you are at the Dear Listener level in Patreon, you will automatically have Prisoner in your account next week, Friday. And you still have time to do that before next week, Friday, or you can go to our online store and buy it starting on October 27th. If you want to connect with Gigi, you can find all of her social media info in the show notes for this episode. That's also where you'll find all of our social medias, individual social medias, show social medias, all the ways you can get in touch with us, including sending us an email at hoofandfangpodcast@gmail.com. Our website is hoofandfangpodcast.com, and that's also where you can find a link to our Patreon page if you need any more direction to go join our Patreon. We will be back next week.
Yeah, same bat time, same bat channel.
Bye.
Bye.